Okay, on page 251, we're going to talk about moving layers. And right now, the TV object is pretty well organized, but at least visually we look at it and it looks good. But over here, Illustrator is going to show us that there's opportunities to make things a little bit more easy to organize and also move. And we're going to organize it through the act of moving layers. So we're asked to, on page 251, use the selection tool to click and select the white object, which I had selected, but I'm going to click and select it again. And in the layers panel, the side panel layer shows a selected art indicator to the far right of the layer name. Well, what we see here is that this little blue box, which is on this layer called path. So this is showing us where this object is in the layers that are actually organized under side panel. So if I click on this and then click on the actual blue box, it is showing me that I can select that layer and that object. And I would need to move that object to the upper right target icon of the screen layer. So that is up here. So let's do it. Notice how the green just popped up. So if I drag that, now you see that that path has moved up under the screen layer. Now what you see is everything pretty much looks the same. Well, that always won't be the case. That kind of worked out in our favor that time. We can't see any visible difference to our organization, but that's because of the stacking order of the objects as it is. What we can see, however, is that our bounding box color has changed. So we have this bright limey green. That's just telling us, look, you've just moved this to another layer, so it's going to behave a little differently or look a little differently. So now I'm going to deselect that. They tell us to do select, deselect by going up to the menu and saying deselect up here. I don't want to do that. I find just as what I've done over the years is I just clicked on a blank area of the whiteboard, and that also deselects much faster than that act. You can also use your Command Shift A to deselect as well. Now we're told in step 4 to click the selection column to the right of the bottom path object here under the side panel layer. And we're going to click on that. This is the selection column. And do you see what happens? We have just selected an object on this layer. So by clicking here, it actually automatically selects the artwork on that layer. Okay? They note on the middle of page 252 that clicking the selection column is a great way to select the art on the artboard. So we're going to drag that same path sublayer up onto the TV body layer. So we're trying to get this object, which is part of what we call the TV body, up on here, and we're going to drag it onto, not underneath like this, but onto the TV body layer. Boom. Now we have some different looks going on. So we see that things are changing their orders. So that's okay. So now we're going to be asked to do the same thing, but as we did in the previous exercise, we're going to select multiple layers. The bottom 2 path objects, okay? And so what I did is I clicked the bottom path layer, and then I held down the Shift key and clicked the layer above it. Let me try that again. Click the bottom layer, add the Shift key and then click again. That bundles them together in a volume package. And now we can drag either layer just by clicking on one or the other while still holding down. We're going to bring it all the way up onto the TV body layer name. Okay, so drag it up here and boom. So that's starting to look a little better. So as you can see, when we started out in this activity, we had a lot of blue and only just one bar of green and one bar of red. You can see now that we're sorting the objects into a much more logical framework. So for example, if I turn off the TV body layer, we now turn off all those objects and we can focus on just the TV screen and the knobs. We can turn off the screen and now we're looking only at the contents of the knobs layer. So you can see how this can become very handy when you're rendering these objects. So let's move on. We can see now that our knobs have disappeared, and this is because the stacking order has been affected by this. The screen layer is on top, the TV body layer is underneath the screen, and the side panel, which includes the knobs, is actually underneath the TV body. And in nature, that would not make sense. That would be like having knobs on the inside of your TV. So what we need to do now is move the side panel to its appropriate location. So in order to do this correctly, we're going to have to be very careful. I'm going to click on the side panel and I'm just going to start dragging it up to where I believe it needs to be. We'll just say that it needs to go between TV body and screen. And as I do this, let's see what happens. What it did is incorrect. It dragged it underneath the screen layer. We don't want it. We want it to stay at the same level, the same plane as the TV body and screen, because we want it to be its own working group. We don't want it to be subordinate to the screen and be a part of that layer. So I'm going to click Command Z to undo that. And what I want to do is just close my triangles down so it tells Illustrator, I think, a little bit more directly that I'm specifically dealing with the top layer of organization. So I'm hiding all the content, and now I'm going to click and drag, and let's see if that works better for us. It appears that it does. So that's what I would recommend is when you're moving your master layers, go ahead, and by saying master, I mean your top layers that contain subordinate content, make sure that you compress them down so that it's explicitly clear to Illustrator that you want to move the entire content of that layer and put it at the top level. Keep it at the A level rather than, if you're thinking of an outline, the A versus the 1 position to the right of that outline.